The Apostle John writes, "After this, Jesus went across the Sea of Galilee of Tiberias. A large crowd followed him because they saw the signs he was performing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. The Jewish feast of Passover was near. When Jesus raised his eyes and saw that a large crowd was coming to him, he said to Philip, 'Where can we buy enough food for them to eat?' He said this to test him, because he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 200 days' wages worth of food would not be enough for each of them to have a little bit. One of his disciples, Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, said to him, 'There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what good are these for so many?' Jesus said, 'Have the people recline.' Now there was a great deal of grass in that place, so the men reclined, about 5,000 in number. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to them, to those who were reclining, and also as much of the fish as they wanted. When they had had their fill, he said to his disciples, 'Gather the fragments left over, so that nothing will be wasted.' So they collected them and filled 12 wicker baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves that had been more than they could eat. When the people saw the sign he had done, they said, 'This is truly the prophet, the one who is to come into the world.' Since Jesus knew that they were going to come and carry him off to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain alone." The gospel today had many details that we should have been sure to pay attention to. And it also has details like there was much grass in the place, and he had them lie down. And so it is important that this is related to Pentecost, because it is related to Passover. It is important that it's related to Passover because Passover was a meal where they were expecting to be freed, expecting to have salvation. It is important that there was much grass in the area and that they were made to recline because of Psalm 23. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me to green pastures. He leads me to green pastures. Makes me lie down in green pastures." Here we see Jesus literally fulfilling this by having the people lie down in the grass as a shepherd would have sheep lie down in the grass. We also see that he gives them food in abundance. So he fulfills the manna from the Exodus and the quails from the Exodus because he gives them bread and fish. And there is enough food left over. There's enough food left over. In the Exodus story, what we have is that they are told each one to get enough food only for himself, except on the 6th day of the week when they are supposed to get enough food for 2 days because the next day is the Sabbath. The next day is the Sabbath. The next day is the day of rest. And so they should not work on the Sabbath. And so what we have is the only day that people are able to keep extra fragments of food, enough food for tomorrow, enough food for the future, as opposed to the food of the rest of the week. If they saved it, it would go bad by the evening. But if they saved it on Friday, there would be enough for the next day and it would not go bad. So because we have them saving up enough food. We say that we are preparing for a new Sabbath. So we have Jesus taking a role as a new Moses, giving a new Passover. We have Jesus taking on the role of giving over a new manna. We have Jesus taking on the role of making a new Sabbath, a new week, a new day of rest. We have Jesus, what do they call him? He is the prophet like Moses. If we go back to the Torah, we hear about a prophet like Moses that was to come later. Finally, we see that they want him to become king, but they want him to become a king that can give them earthly food. He does not want to be a king that gives them earthly food or earthly rest or Passover from slavery. Rather, he wants to be a king that will give them heavenly food. Now, in Matthew and Mark and Luke, in the Gospels, we have a story of the Last Supper, the Lord's Supper, which takes place at Passover. In John, we have the washing of the feet, which takes place at Passover. But here, at the feast of Passover, in John chapter 6, he gives all of his people food with an abundance. He has his apostles distribute food to everyone. And then the next day, when everybody comes to him seeking more food, what does he do? He says, unless you eat my body and drink my blood, you will have no life within you. If you do not eat my body and do not drink my blood, you will not have life within you. If you eat my body and drink my blood, you will have life within you. And so here we see, as it were, the Last Supper of Matthew, Mark, and Luke in chapter 6 of John. We see Jesus setting himself up as a new prophet, as a new lawgiver, a new Moses, as a new king, as a new priest. We see Jesus giving us not manna for our life, but manna for eternal life, his own body and his own blood to drink.